Hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat, focusing on everything in the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest across the 6 divisions in the FAWNL. It's going to be a much shorter episode this week because we've only got 4 games to talk about and the regular season is now finished. So we're going to look at these final 4 games, well, technically 5, but it was really only 4, the final league tables, and then we're going to just have a bit of a discussion about what might happen next year. So let's get straight down to it. The Northern Premier Division. 2 games here to finish the season off. Huddersfield 1, Hull City 2. Hull City taking the lead in this one. Helen Linsky in the 12th minute and then getting a second goal in the 20th minute put them 2-0 up away at Huddersfield. Laura Elford got one back for Huddersfield, but it wasn't enough. And Hull, with their final game of the season, managed to get themselves off the bottom of the table. Elsewhere, Burnley 6, Middlesbrough 1, Katie Thomas, Dominique Cooper, Nicola Worthington and a hat-trick for Evie Priestley with the goals for Burnley. Armani Maxwell getting the lone goal for Middlesbrough. And in Division 1 North, Alnwick Town 3, Bradford City 4. Alnwick Town on the wrong end of a 7-goal thriller in that one. Goals to Alnwick Town, to Lucy Bowman twice and Sophie Williams. Goals for Bradford City, a brace for Charlotte Stewart, Hope Knight and Emma Elliott, getting them the 4-3 victory. And finally, Newcastle against Barnsley, 8-1 Newcastle win by, 2 for Brooke Cochrane, 3 for Lauren Robson, Beth Guy, Becky Ferguson and Katie Barker with the goals for Newcastle. Eve Marshall getting a late consolation for Barnsley in the 82nd minute. Final Northern Premier Division table then. So Burnley with their win climb up a place, go above Nottingham Forest into 4th. And Hull City, as I said a few moments ago, winning on the final day of the season against Huddersfield and lifting themselves up off the bottom of the table. So it's Sheffield that finish the season at the bottom. Southern Premier Division final table then. No games this week. Oxford finishing in 2nd. It was a mistake on last week's show. To apologise for that. Yes, Oxford 2nd, 9 points behind Southampton, who of course are champions. Then Ipswich, and then towards the bottom, Hounslow finishing with a minus 117 goal difference. Keynsham Town, Chichester Chelsea and Cardiff City all playing life in Tier 4 next season. Division 1 North table then. So that win for Bradford lifts them up a couple of places. And they are finishing further away from the relegation zone than it looked like they might do for a while. Barnsley, of course, deducted 3 points, but in the end it didn't make a difference. They still would have survived. FC United of Manchester, Chester Street Town and Alnwick Town drop into Tier 5. Liverpool Feds will be in the Northern Premier Division next season. Into Division 1 Midlands, Bournemouth St Michael's make the jump up to Tier 3, winning the league by 2 points. One thing to note with the Division 1 Midlands is there should have been one game this weekend. Lincoln City against Wem Town, which was the last game remaining in Division 1 Midlands after it got postponed the week before. I did mention on last week's show, I wonder if they'll actually play it because it wasn't going to make a difference. Lincoln City were guaranteed to finish where they are currently. Wem Town were guaranteed to finish where they are currently. And the teams decided it wasn't worth playing the game. It was given as a home walkover to Lincoln City, who get the 3 points. So they get the 3 points without playing the game. And they finish 1 point behind Doncaster Rovers Bells, but still in 3rd. Wem Town, Burton Albion and Bideford United all drop to Tier 5. Division 1 South East then, so this is the final table. Of course, Billericay Town on the final day of the season jumped above #United to win by a single point. And Enfield Town in the end just miss out by a couple of points. That was so tight in the South East towards the end there. You've got 4 points separating Cambridge City, Norwich City, Cambridge United, Enfield Town and Stevenage. But in the end, it's Enfield Town, Stevenage, Harlow Town and Kent Football United that drop into Tier 5. And Division 1 Southwest, Cheltenham into Tier 3 next season. They'll be in the Southern Premier Division. Bournemouth, Exeter, gave it a good shot. Southampton women as well. Even with a few games to go, women was shot of overtaking Cheltenham, but in the end, Cheltenham got the win that they needed to ensure that they go into Tier 3. And Poole Town at the bottom drop into Tier 5. They were relegated a good few weeks ago. Right, those are the final tables for this season. Of course, we've only got one game to go, which is the playoff final between Wolves and Southampton. We'll get onto that next week because it is a week on Saturday, the 21st of May. What we're going to do now, because I'm appreciative of the fact we're only 6 minutes in and we've virtually done this week already because there were so few games, is we're going to have a look at what's going to come up next year with the FAWNL, because if you remember, all these promotion and relegations and some divisions losing 4 teams, some losing 3, was to try and make it so that the leagues are 12 teams next year. So this is Tier 3 as it stands at the moment. You've got the Northern Premier Division on the left, the Southern Premier Division on the right. So in the north, there are 12 teams as it stands at the moment, having lost those sides at the bottom, Hull, Sheffield and Middlesbrough, gaining Liverpool, Feds and Boldmere St Michael's, who are the champions. But of course, you've got Wolves against Southampton there in that playoff. So at the moment, the Northern Premier Division has 12. The Southern Premier Division has 13 because you've got the 2 teams that came up, but you've also got Watford who have come down from the Championship. So from a league point of view, it's easiest if Southampton were to win this playoff because then both divisions have 12 teams in them. If Wolves were to win the playoffs, you've got the Southern Premier Division with 13 and the Northern Premier Division with 11. So there are 2 options here. You feel, and I've heard both, of firstly the Northern Premier Division not relegating Middlesbrough anymore, which yes would work, but it would also have a knock-on effect on the 12 team leagues below, which we'll have a look on. But then you've still got 13 teams in the Southern Premier Division, so do we just delay this trying to get to 12 teams everywhere by another year and sort it out next year? Or do you laterally move a team from the south into the Northern Premier Division? Now, the issue with that is that the most northern Southern Premier Division side is currently MK Dons, which, for those of you who are relatively aware of UK geography, is still quite a way south. However, when you look at a map of where all the teams are in the north, you've also got to consider the fact that the team in the very north, which is Middlesbrough, are no longer in Tier 3. And Newcastle, who were also up there, didn't get promoted. It was Liverpool Fed, so are much more on the what I'll call the Humber line, alongside with Hull, your Huddersfield, Brighouses and Fields on that sort of line. So I did a bit of looking into this. So if you were to move Milton Keynes Dons laterally, the longest journey, which as far as I could make out was MK Dons to Fylde, would be 190 miles each way. And the longest journey at the moment, which is your Wolves, West Brom area up to Middlesbrough, is 164 miles. So you're gaining, a journey for some of those teams that are 20, 25 miles longer than there would be at the moment. So I don't think that's undoable. And I think it's certainly possible. I mean, the other team that's just about longitudinally with, latitudinally actually, isn't it? With MK Dons is Ipswich, but they play in Felixstowe, which is obviously right on the eastern coast. That would be a very long trip and wouldn't really make sense. So we'll see what the league do. Of course, it all depends on the outcome of the playoff game there, because if Southampton win, then both Tier 3 divisions have got 12 teams in them and we needn't worry about all this. And, that's something that the FAWNL will come to as and when they need to. Let's have a look at Tier 4 then. Because this 12 teams in each division has almost worked. It's just the Division 1 Midlands, which is on the very left of your screen there, that only has 11 teams in it. But again, there's not a huge amount they could do about that. Either they just save Wem Town, who were the highest relegated side, and put them in Division 1 Midlands again for another season, and then they've all got 12, which would slightly mess up, your very regionalised leagues in Tier 5 and below, but they're a bit all over the place anyway at the moment. Once you get down that low, of course, it does depend on the geography and where all the teams are, so it... maybe doesn't matter so much if they do decide to save Wem Town, but at the moment we've got the other option is to have some sort of playoff between the West and East Midlands second place sides in Tier 5 to promote another one, but we'll see. Maybe they'll just leave it as 11 teams for next year, relegate one only next year to Tier 5, because then when the 2 Tier 5 seed teams come up, you've got 12 again. Maybe that's what the league will do. Don't know. The league probably don't know yet because they're just waiting for everything else to finish up. Or maybe they will save Wem Town or promote another team to make it 12. We'll have to see. But Division 1 Midlands then, we now know, of course, the 8 teams that are coming up from Tier 5 as well. So I'll go through those while they're on this screen. So in Division 1 Midlands, we've got Stourbridge, who have won the Regional West Midlands, and Northampton Town, who have won the Regional East Midlands. And then I've put Sheffield in there as well, the relegated side from Tier 3, the Northern Premier Division, because, they're further south than Doncaster Rovers Bells, so it's clear that they're going to go into the Midlands, the Division 1 Midlands. Then if we move right a column into Division 1 North, you've got promoted sides Merseyrail and York City, from the North East and the North West regionals, and then relegated from the Northern Premiership, you've got Middlesbrough and Hull City. And again, it's clear that those 2 sides will go into the north because Middlesbrough is so far north, and Hull City as well are further north than quite a few of the sides. When you look at it on a map, than are in the northern, the Division 1 North at the moment. So I suppose it's possible for them to go into the Midlands, but to me it just doesn't make sense. You've got to really put Hull in the north, and that's the 12 teams in the north. Then if we move across into the southern area, you've got South East, that third column there. So hashtag United, of course, because these lists aren't in alphabetical order. They are in the order that they finished last season. Promoted, you've got Wyndham Town and Ashford Town, who won the South East and the London regionals. Then relegated Hounslow, who are obviously in London, and Chichester and Chelsea, who are on the south coast. And then if you move into South West, you've got Cardiff City relegated, which of course it's obvious they go into South West. Same with Keynsham Town, who are over in the kind of Gloucester, Bristol area. So clearly that they go into South West. Promoted, you've got AFC St Austell, who are down in Cornwall. Again, clear that they go into South West. And Moneyfields, who are in Portsmouth. So again, it makes sense that they go into South West. You'll see the note I've got there, Chichester and Chesham to move laterally. So both of these leagues have 12 teams in them at the moment. However, when you look at a map again of where they're all located, you've got Chesham and Maidenhead, who are in South West, but they're further east, and they're just outside the M25, really. They are further east than Chichester and Chelsea are, who will go into the East, just the South East League, you would think anyway. So I'm wondering if they will swap those over and put Chichester and Chelsea, who are not far away from the likes of Southampton and from Moneyfields now that they've come up. I'm wondering if they will just swap Chesham and Chichester and Chelsea. It only makes sense to swap the one side and Chesham being the furthest east rather than Maidenhead, that kind of makes more sense to me. If those two will swap and Chesham will go into Chesham will go into south east because they are so close to London, and Chichester, who are relatively close to quite a few sides in the southwest, as I've said, like Moneyfields and Southampton Women, if they will move into southwest for next season. So there's plenty for the league to think about. But as well, I like the fact it's kind of become more standardised now. We've got into 12 teams per division. Well, for the most part, apart from Division 1 Midlands. And that makes it a lot easier to keep it at 12 teams as well. Because you can then have, you've got 1 up, 1 down per league. So 2 down from Tier 3. And then obviously the champions of each of Tier 4 will go up into Tier 3. And that will easily keep the leagues. And then 2 down from Tier 4. And then obviously the 2 up from the Tier 5 champions. So it does make it a lot easier for the league now that they've got this. Well, hopefully, could be what they do, could not be. I could be talking absolute nonsense. If this is what they do, then they've got it. They've got it sorted then, and it makes it a lot easier and a lot more standard, rather than some divisions playing 18 games and 1 team goes down, and then you've got the Southern Premier where 4 teams go down from 26 games, and it was all a bit of a mess. But I said this week's show was going to be shorter. It is indeed. So next week might have something a bit special for you. It depends how quickly it can get edited. But we'll see. And then we've got a preview, of course, for the playoff game on the 21st. And there is the inaugural FAWNL awards ceremony on the evening of the 21st as well. Very much looking forward to that. But thank you so much for joining me on this week's Women's Football Chat. As I said, a lot of shorter one. But keep supporting your local women's football team. Of course, there's no games at the moment, but there's a few County Cup fixtures, County Cup finals and so forth to just finish off. So keep an eye on your social media accounts for your local football team. And of course, give them a follow. If you want to get involved in the show, leave a comment down below or get involved on Twitter at Chris_Gadsby. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.